Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for another hard rock and metal video. Let's just jump in. First up, a little bit of Lizzie Borden. So this one is one of those albums, EPs. Man, I've been looking for a clean copy of this for easily a good 15 years. Every time I find it, it's trashed. I finally broke down about 3 months ago and bought a recent reissue. And every time I do break down and do that, I end up finding a nice original pressing within a couple of months, and that's what happened here. And I found it for a good price. I think I paid like 17 bucks for this, but the vinyl is dead mint. But this is Give 'Em the Axe from Lizzie Borden. Probably in my top 10 metal EPs of all time. Just a fantastic EP. A little bit of ring wear and some sticker marks, but all in all, super happy with this one. Again, one of my favorite EPs. Next up, a little bit different direction, a little bit of Graveyard for those of you guys that are into kind of that 70s hard rock, stoner metal kind of sound. Gravedigger's been kind of all through there. They've gone a little bit 70s hard rock. They've gone a little bit psychedelic. They've gone a little bit straight up stoner rock. And this one's just kind of all of that. This just came out within the last, I believe in the last month or so. Fantastic album though. What's it called? 666, I guess is what it's called. 6666. Gravedigger has been just putting out solidly killer albums for about a decade now. They actually split up in 2017 or 18. I was pretty disappointed because they just put out a killer album. Luckily, they ended up getting back together and working through the pandemic and putting out some killer music. But I've been playing this one a lot and highly recommend picking that one up if you grab it. Next up, speaking of giving up and finally buying a reissue. Actually, this just got reissued recently as part of the problem. Let's say, well, yeah, this year is when it got reissued finally. Run the Light from Trouble is the only original of their first, through 95. This was the only album that I haven't been able to find a really nice original pressing of. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen an original pressing of this, at least not recently since I've been looking. So I was really happy when they announced that they were going to reissue this. It probably means in the next couple months I will show an original because I'll find it somewhere. But Run to the Light from Trouble. It's not my favorite. This is probably my least favorite of their first 5 albums, but it's still a really killer album. And I'm really happy to finally have that one on vinyl. And then speaking of Trouble, also One for the Road, which is a live EP from, it doesn't say when it's from. Actually, this may just be an EP. I don't think this was live. But there you go. Next up, this one is an album I didn't know existed. If I saw this, I would have, in the store, I would have thought it was a bootleg. And I'm glad I bought it because this is by far the best pressing of this album. I did a whole video comparing Appetite Destruction, the OG pressing, versus the 2017 or 18 reissue that got done. The reissue blew away the original. So apparently in 2001, there was a UK only, or I don't know if it was UK only, but it was a UK reissue. And I did a lot of research because I thought this was a bootleg. But it's not. It is official. It's the only time the original artwork has been officially released or re-released. But this thing kills. My issue has always been the snare drum sound. And they've got it right here. I don't remember who, I looked it up. It was a remaster though. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't say on the back here. But if you can find this one, and they're starting to pop up and they're getting pretty expensive. These are already in the low hundreds. I ended up working out a deal and got it well under that. I think it ended up costing me about 60 bucks, which is about what the reissues or about what the bootlegs are going for now. It's insane. But in 2001, there was an official pressing done with the rape cover that blows away the original pressing and the pressing from a few years ago, the remaster that got done. So if you can find this, I highly recommend checking this one out. And it's funny, I've watched on Discogs for years since this came out. Every couple months, somebody marks it it's a bootleg, and there's it turns into a big thing in the Discogs forums because it's not. It is an official pressing. Next up, it's funny. This is one I was on Patrick's stream one night. We were listening to 70s hard rock and early 80s metal, and a song from this band came on. It's Messenger. And man, these guys are from South Georgia. This is just really killer. It kind of fits in between. It's not really metal. It's not really hard rock. It's a little of both, and not really either one. But it's a fantastic album. It would be much better. Unfortunately, they do Strangers. The first song on here is a 10 out of 10, and then they do Hang On Sloopy. A super famous song from the 60s. Then they do Bebop Lula from Gene Vincent, and then they go back into the metal with Living, and then the B-side. Really killer. When you do covers like that, I prefer them at the end of the album. So if I don't want to listen to them, I could just turn them off. But it's the A side, Jab Records. I don't know if this is a local level. If it's their label, if it was a local label here in Georgia back in the day, I don't know. But found a really nice copy of this. It's fantastic. If you run across it, it's not super expensive. If you're a 70s hard and heavy guy, if you're a private press collector, this is just one of those albums you should have. It's the songs, even the covers are really good. It just kind of breaks up the heavy metal of the rest of the album. And you kind of see, it looks like guys from Georgia in the 80s, early 80s. Next up, really killer album. This was done by Brother Scott Waters and Rocks Records. This is Testimony of Apocalypse. This is basically the original singer and the drummer from Sacrament, the thrash band from the early 90s. They got back together, and Testimony of Apocalypse was one of the songs on the first Sacrament album, and that's where they came up with this. This is a fantastic album. I really love this one. I heard they just announced that they're doing a new album. I believe it's going to come out the first part of next year, and I've heard the first couple songs off of that. They posted them online. They're even better than this one is. I'm really looking forward to that. Next up, I was on the website, and Rockadrome got a copy of this, so I went ahead and grabbed it. I don't know. I had an original pressing of this, and I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if it was just beat up, so I got rid of it, or if I traded it to somebody. But Crazy Nights from Tigers of Pan Tang. This is actually a Japanese white label promo. I love this album, so I'm really glad to have this one in the collection again. Next up, this is one that I've wanted since it came out. Unfortunately, they only pressed it to picture. I believe it was only the picture disc. If it was pressed to vinyl, it's probably a $300 record. When Danzig started repressing his later stuff, though, this is one I was most excited about. This is Circle of Snakes. Killer artwork, as always. He kind of went back to his old style with this album, but not just that. He put out one of my all-time favorite Danzig album songs. I wish he would have he still played this live. He didn't touch anything from his later career when I saw him last month. But Black Angel, White Angel, if you haven't heard that song and you like Danzig, play that song. I think it's one of the best songs he's ever written. It's a 10 out of 10. And I would have bought this just for that song alone. I love this album, though. Danzig kind of fell off. I wasn't a big fan of Danzig 4. I have it, but I almost never play it. I don't like Black Acid Devil. There's a couple songs on there that are all right, but not something. It's definitely not a go-to. And then after that, he kind of went back to the traditional sound of the first 3 albums, and that's kind of what this is. So if you like those first few albums, this is one you should really have in the collection. Next up, Raven, Leave 'Em Bleeding. I'm not sure what they were doing with this one. So there's a few new songs, there's a few covers, there's a few live tracks on here. I guess I just wanted to put out some new material coming out of the pandemic. I saw them right before they released this. Scott Waters came out here and a few months later, this one came out. But this is Leave 'Em Bleeding, so that you've got Top of the Mountain, Metal City, The Power, Destroy All Monsters, Battle March, Crash Bang Wallop Live, Necessary Evil. They do a great cover of Space Station Number 5. Great cover of Bad Reputation, Rock This Town, Stay Hard, Live, and then Malice in Geordie Land. But really killer album. You can get this for cheap. It's not super expensive. I think I paid like $22 for it. They do have a new album that came out that's fantastic. Recommend picking that one up. I love the new drummer. He's not new anymore. He's been there for about 5 years. But he brought the speed back. He's so good, and it's nice to hear them playing really fast metal again. Next up, this was some VCLT from Brother Scott. This is Jerusalem live in the USA. I forgot how good this album was. I don't like everything that Jerusalem did. They had a sweet spot, but this live album is a 10 out of 10. Highly recommend picking this up. It's not expensive if you can find it. Actually, I don't know if they did them on vinyl. I know they did. I believe they did all the Jerusalem. Rock's Record did all the Jerusalem. Maybe it was Girder, but they were all just recently reissued. Next up, this is another one from the record show. I really dug this one. Another Private Press. Diamond Claw, No Hate in Paradise. Apparently, these guys were pretty popular on the Sunset Strip. I read a little bit about them. They were kind of a cool opener, a popular opener, but never much more than that. Blackjack Records gave them a deal for an EP, and I guess it just didn't sell well, and they ended up dropping them, and that's the only thing that they ever did. It's just really good LA glam. If you're a fan of that, then Diamond Claw is worth checking out again. Not super expensive. Grab it. Next up, I just got this one for really cheap. I had never had it on vinyl. I've only got the CD version of it, but Enforcer, Death by Fire. Just a classic, one of their best albums. It's fantastic. And actually, speaking of that, I think I've got their new album in here. I saw some bad reviews of this, but I don't get it. This is one of my favorite albums of theirs. I didn't like their last album, and I thought they brought back the fire with this one. But this is nostalgia, and I love the artwork. I love the album. I love everything about this one. If you run across this, I highly recommend grabbing it. If you're just really cool 80s style metal. Next up, Alice in Chains, A Paranormal Evening at the Olympia Paris. Just recently picked this up. It's just him live from a few years ago. Alice Cooper's still killing it, man. I just saw him a few years ago in his mid to late 60s. Still sounds fantastic. Still does a great show. Still bouncing around the stage. It's amazing, especially when you figure the level of addiction that he had and the level of alcoholism, where he doesn't remember years of his life, that he's cleaned himself up, and in his 60s, he's still out there on the road. Next up, pulled this one out and gave it a spin. Truth and Janie, Topeka Jam 74. Go to Rockadrome if you haven't checked out Truth and Janie. Fantastic 70s, hard and heavy. Everything that they've released from these guys is fantastic. It should be in your collection. Next up, unfortunately, an album I was really excited for that just didn't do it for me. Metal Church has been on... they've just been putting out killer album after killer album after killer album. Unfortunately, Mike Howe succumbed to depression and took his own life. They brought in a new singer. I saw some of the stuff from the studio, some videos they were posting. I was really excited about it. And then I got the album, and it's not a bad album. It's a good album. When I'm done listening to it, though, I don't remember any of it. You know, it just all sounds the same. You know, it's an album I really wanted to like. I love Metal Church; they're a favorite of mine. It just didn't hit for me. You know, I'll give it a couple months and pull it out and spin it again. Maybe it will. But after a few spins, it just hasn't made me want to pull it out again. So next up, London Choirboys, A Bit of What You Fancy. I was watching something on TV, and one of the songs from this came on. and I knew my record store had a cheap copy of it. It was in mint condition in the sleeve. I mean, in the shrink, so I went ahead and grabbed it. Not as good as I remember it being, but it's still a pretty good album for what it is. And then last but not least, a little bit of Voivod, Morgoth Tales. This is a fun album. This was released for their anniversary this year. This is all of their classic songs re-recorded with the current lineup, and then a new song called Morgoth Tales. It's just a fun album. They weren't trying to reinvent anything here. You know, just for their tribute, they're for their 40-year anniversary. They just wanted to do a little tribute to the entire history of the band, and that's kind of what they did here. Definitely worth picking up if you're a Voivod fan. None of these are better than the originals, but it's still a fun listen, and it'll still be fun to pull out from time to time. That's it, guys. I hope everybody's doing good. See you soon, and I'll talk to you later.